Hey everybody, what's up? You know, I was reading on the Sega forums, and this will be posted on these forums if people like it or not. But I'm not going to try to make this long, and if I do, I apologize, first off, if I do. But people want to know, one person in particular on the forums wants to know about the mandates that have been handed down when it comes to the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book by Sega. Like, what are the mandates? Well, a lot of people have given their own explanation as to what the mandates are. In fact, you can almost look at almost 4 pages worth on this topic of what mandates there are. However, I thought maybe I could help out myself, kind of contribute myself. You see, the mandates, whether we like them or not, whether Ian Flynn likes them or not, or Ken Penders when he worked on the book, or anybody that works on the book likes them or not, the mandates are there for a reason. You see, those in charge at Sega, those that, are in charge of releasing the games statewide and internationally, they overall basically have the final say of how a character can be used. Especially when it comes to the game cast. You see, nowadays, the game cast is more protected, I guess you could say, more protected than they've ever been. An example being is that the characters, an example of one of the mandates, I should say, being is that the characters cannot change that much, if at all, from their game personalities. In other words, they cannot differ, if at all, from what you see in the games. In other words, Sonic's still got to be the Sonic you see in the games, Amy's still got to be the Amy you see in the games, Knuckles has got to be Knuckles, Tails has got to be Tails, and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of people out there, even on this forum, that feel that if Sega would not enforce this mandate as much, that these characters could grow and develop. And that is true. If Sega wasn't so lenient, they could grow and develop. But you see, that's one of the mandates out there that some people don't like. But there's a reason for that mandate, whether we like it or not, and that is because of the new generation. The new generation of fans that are introduced to Sonic through the games. That if they pick up the comic for the first time and they read it, and they see Sonic differ from what they see in the games, they're going to wonder, why isn't he like that in the games? So that is why these mandates are in there. So that when they pick up the comic and they read the story, and they see Sonic on it, they see Sonic, but they see him like when he's battling the egg swats, or whatever you want to call him, and they see him being the Sonic that you see in the games, or that is seen in the games, just like with Amy and Tails and, so on, then it'll be basically be like, oh, cool, no wonder people referred me from the games to this. That is why the mandate is in there for Sonic and the game cast to keep the personalities very close, if not exactly the same as what you see in the games. Another mandate that a lot of people kind of look at and say, well, it's a comic, you're bound to have things differently. You need development, especially in an area that, to me, is one of the most controversial areas ever, and that's the romance area. You see, when it comes to romantic interludes, it's basically been mandated that Sonic cannot have a relationship of any kind. He can date, and correction, he can have a relationship. He can, but it's got to be temporary. That's right, it has to be temporary. He has to have a temporary relationship, break it off, go back to being Sonic, and then probably down the line do it again. Basically, recycle. Rinse and repeat. It's a endless loop well, an endless cycle, circle, if you will, endless loop and rinse and repeat. That's what it is. That's what this whole romantic thing is. That's why the mandate is on it. Because basically, I'll admit, it is one of the more lenient mandates, but they're still saying, look, Sonic cannot have a permanent relationship. He cannot do what Cyclops or Peter Parker or whoever else out there, Superman, he cannot do what they do. He has to have temporariness. And again, it's to basically make him closer to what the fans who were introduced to him in the games in recent years see. Now, some might argue that there have been examples in the game of romantic interest. One example, of course, being, well, let's face it, the Sonic Rush series and Black Knight. But again, Black Knight is a storybook is part of the storybook Sonic games, or the storybook games portion of the Sonic franchise. That is why, you know, some people, they allude to it, but they don't allude to it as much, and if they were to confront Sega about it, Sega would say, oh, that storyline, that's a storybook game, that's in a storybook, that doesn't count. But you kind of get the idea. So again, yes, people will argue there have been some examples in the game, but not much. I mean, even 06 you could say, well, there was a huge example there. Yeah, that was a huge example, but have we seen any more of Elise, except for the encyclopedia? No. We haven't. We haven't seen anything. We haven't had no indication of it or whatsoever. The point is, the relationship mandate is a little bit more lenient, but the reason being is because it allows Sonic to have temporary relationships with non-game characters. That's the thing. That is why, believe it or not, you see a lot of Sonic and Sally. That is why when Ken Penders was on board, you saw Ken Penders and Carl Bolas were on board, you saw Sonic with Fiona. That is why, you know, during the whole the whole imposter Antoine thing, the whole Patch impersonating Antoine deal. That is why when Bunny thought that her and Antoine were no more, why Sonic was kind of, you know, got kissed by Bunny, why he was flirting with Bunny, as some people like to point it out. It's because they're not game characters. They're not in the games. They're non-game characters, which means things are a little bit more freelanced with them, but still the mandate is there that says it doesn't matter who Sonic ends up with, it has to be temporary. And again, that's why you see writers like Penders, like Bowlers, like Flynn. You know, that's why you constantly see them going back to Sonic and Sally. It's because it's the only relationship it's the only relationship Sonic can have and have on a temporary basis. I'll get that a little bit. But can have on a temporary basis. So, again, it's basically what Sonic can have on a temporary basis. It's the only kind of relationship that can work that way. Now, I understand a lot of fans feel, well, why couldn't they do that with Amy? Well, in the games, the age difference, which is one of the big things, is not that far in between. But the difference with the comics is it is. You see, the age difference, what some people pointed out, and you can find that on this forum, or on this topic, the age difference between Sonic and Amy when it comes to the games is only by 2 to 3 years. But when you look at the comics, it's more like 5 to 6 years. Maybe even, yeah, basically 5 to 6 years. And it has been already enforced, I guess as some people would put it, that Ian Flynn has been told Sonic cannot show any kind of interest whatsoever in Amy. And that Amy has to retain being her from the games. That, as I mentioned earlier, she has to retain her personality from the games. An example, a big example being, one of the big examples being, or one of the best examples out there being, and maybe it's a disturbing example if you will or not. When Sonic was carrying Amy, I think in 234 or something like that, or 233, I can't remember, a lot of people felt that it was kind of disgusting that there was a hot con, if you will, a hot emoticon above Amy. They found that a little disturbing. But again, that's all part of the mandate that Amy must retain a bit of her personality from the game, if not most of it. Another example being, if you will, you go back to 200. The mandate there, and you can see that mandate there. But again, the whole situation with Sonic and Amy is Amy has to retain her personality from the games. That is why you constantly don't see her in a relationship with Sonic in the comics, or you see any kind of indication of that in the games. Now you might say, well, what about Sonic X? There would seem to be a little indication to that in the third season, if not the end of the second season. Yeah, there was, but you got to remember, Sonic X also may have made Amy more likable, in my opinion, but also retained, just like the comics have been told to, also retained her personality from the games. You want a good example of this? Take a look at the episode in the third season. Take a look at the episode in the third season where they land on that planet of gypsies, or whatever it is, that gypsy planet, after she hears that one of the spells or potions that they have there is a love potion. So there you go. There's your answer to that. Again, it's all about retaining the personality. Now I know, and again, I understand and know that you're saying, well, wait a minute. You know, there seemed to be some kind of hint that they were together. It's all basically retaining the personality. Okay? Yeah, Sonic does care for Amy. There's no doubt about it. But it's all about being within the mandates. Okay? It's all about being within the mandates. That's what it is. Checking the time there. But again, it's all about being within the mandates. That is why Sonic and Amy are only kind of like in the same thing as Sally. It's a temporary deal, if anything, depending on the media. Sonic X being more connected to the games, aims at basically being an adaptation of the games, or an anime adaptation of the games, could pull it off. And yeah, maybe they were given certain limits, or certain liberties at the end of the seasons, not during the seasons. Because you still constantly had Sonic running away from Amy, and running and doing his own thing. But he never stopped saying he still cared about her. And that is why you saw certain things throughout Sonic X. That is why sometimes, if they put it in the games, I'll be right back with part 2.